Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk. My guest today is Rick Lawler, and I know Rick will appreciate this. This is the beginning of my third season, and just by way of explanation, the reason I started this show is that in my lifetime I've met so many really interesting people, and it seems to me that it doesn't matter whether their families came here 300 years ago or 30 years ago. They have a great story to tell about what brought them to the East End of Long Island. And, you know, everybody contributes in unique ways. So I love to find out about their families and their stories and what they do now that they live here on the East End of Long Island. So Rick and I have known each other a long time. We went to school together in East Hampton. Rick grew up in East Hampton. And we're going to start right away by showing his very first photo. I think you're going to love his story about his family roots here in East Hampton. And this is his first photo. Now tell me who this is.
Okay, that's my grandfather, Joe Loris, my grandmother, Rose, who was a brewer from Sag Harbor, Rose Loris, and those are my two cousins. That looks like Wendy and Shelley Newman.
Okay. And the Loris name goes back quite a way in East Hampton, right?
Oh, sure. Well, I think we're going to see a picture of my great-grandfather later on, but just to start, my great-grandfather emigrated from Italy when he was 14 years old, a little town near Palermo. And he started in New York City as a barber. And a friend once told him, "You ought to go out to East Hampton. I think there's money to be made out there." So he comes to East Hampton. He gets into the restaurant bar business, and he starts in Montauk at a place that we all knew was Rushmeyer's. I don't know what the name of it is now. The building is still there and is still a nightclub of sorts. So he starts there and does pretty well, and he actually hosts Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders when
Okay.
they were here recouping from all of their
Sure.
fighting. So they frequented the place often.
So that would have been the end of the 1800s.
Yes,
Because-
actually 1898 is when he starts the business in Montauk. And yeah, they're here about the same
Because
time.
I'm realizing we have a connection there because my great-grandfather was the lighthouse keeper at that time.
Oh, that's right, interesting. Yeah,
Yes, at
that's
the
right.
same
That's
time, so they
fantastic.
probably knew each other.
I'm sure, I'm sure. And also, I'm told that Johnny Weissmuller, who was the original Tarzan,
Uh-huh.
used to frequent his tavern when he was out visiting on vacation. So kind of a little bit of history there. And so he, after the Rough Riders leave, the business kind of slacks off and he decides that he wants to get out of it. And so I'm not quite sure how he ends it, whether he sells it or it's taken over by somebody else, but I'm not quite sure how that ends. Anyway, he takes what money he has and he realizes that East Hampton is probably the place to be. So he wants to buy a parcel of land in the village of East Hampton, which is that big concrete building you see right next to the entrance to
Which
the
we have-
Rushan lot
I
now.
think we have pictures of, let's see what these two pictures are.
Okay.
One is a wedding picture.
Okay, well, that's my parents, which we can talk
Oh,
about
that's your
in a
parents.
few
Okay,
minutes.
let's
Yeah.
put them down for a minute.
So
What
this is the front of the hotel
Okay.
that he eventually built. So what happens is he takes, he has the land is gonna cost $500, but he's afraid that back in the day, Italians were discriminated against. In fact, his real name was Loria, which he changed to Loris because he was afraid that he would be discriminated against as an Italian.
Sure.
So he's afraid that the owner of the land won't sell it to him because he's Italian. So he pays a friend $200 to buy the land for him for $500. So the deal goes through, and then he contracts with a cement block maker in Montauk who's come up with a new version of a cement block which absorbs moisture less. And you see the rounded face on the cement block if you look at that building as opposed to just a squared off
Right.
block. So
And
that's
it's
what
still
he-
there.
Yeah, it's absolutely,
still,
this main
this
building
is
is
on the
still there.
corner of where you go into Park Place.
Yes.
Parking lot on
For
Newtown Lane.
Right.
If folks look at the corner, not where Stop and Shop is, but the other
Opposite-
corner,
opposite corner.
this is that building.
Right, and you
Right.
see that Newtown Lane is dirt back then.
Yes.
And so that's my grandfather, my great-grandfather there. Down a young boy sitting down below him is my grandfather's brother, Frank Loris. And in the back is my grandfather's younger sister, Caroline Lawler. She becomes a brewer. And then there's my great-grandmother, I'm not sure which one, because the photo is unclear. My great-grandmother is in the back, and I'm not sure who the other people are in it. It's not that clear.
Okay, and that, this would have been early 1900s.
Oh, yeah.
1920s maybe?
Somewhere, yeah, sure.
Because that's another connection, because my ancestors had a garage.
Yeah,
So they probably,
okay, they probably did that.
bought
And-
gas from
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
them.
So, and he did own he owned out into the entrance, originally, when he bought the property, it was out into the entrance to the parking lot, which the village bought from him. And the building had a wood, back to it, which was the kitchen facilities, and my grandparents had living quarters above that.
Okay, let me show this picture, because this is a good shot of
Okay.
just the front
Sure,
of,
that's the entrance,
the
you had to
East
step
Hampton
up to it,
Hotel.
right. And above it were, I wanna say about 12 or 13 rooms that he rented out. So it was quite a business at the time, and I think we have another picture of the inside, which will show you how elaborate it was, the dining hall at
I have
some
two
point.
pictures of the inside,
Okay,
one,
so, yeah, so the one on your right, which would be the left for the camera, is the inside of the dining hall. And so you can see how it was done up pretty nicely.
yeah, it was
So
beautiful,
in its day, it was quite the place.
yeah.
And of course, all the family members worked there at times to keep it going. And I remember as a young boy, when we used to sleep over at my grandparents' place, I loved it because my grandfather, Joe, his son, was the chef there.
Is that this one in this
No,
picture?
that's my great-grandfather, so
your
his son,
great-grandfather.
Joe Lawrence, which was in that first picture we saw.
Okay,
Okay, he was the chef, so we could have virtually everything, anything we wanted to eat. Of
and
course,
this
as
guy was
kids,
the bartender?
he was, my great-grandfather, Joe Lawrence, who owned the place, and he also tended bar.
Tended the bar.
So, I loved it because we could have anything we wanted to eat. Of course, as kids, what was a spaghetti? That's what we had all the time. And then we would, my brother and I, my oldest brother Jimmy and I, when we were there and we wanted something to drink, usually a soda. So my grandfather would get a kick out of sending us into the bar to get a soda
get a
because
soda.
my great-grandfather didn't like us in the bar. So he would chase us out. So it was always a game of cat and mouse. I'd send my older brother in first to distract him, and then I would sneak behind the bar to take a couple of sodas and go back in
Oh,
the
that's
kitchen.
funny.
My grandfather always got a kick out of that.
Those are great memories.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic.
And my memory of that building is mostly after it was abandoned. And it was just the steps and there was nobody there.
Absolutely.
So when did it stop?
Oh,
you
gosh, I
remember?
think it's 60, I
Early
want to say
60s?
the early 60s. It was
Yeah.
bought by Roni Maraska, who was a big business person in the town at that time. But as I said, the back was a wood structure, and it went, the original building went almost back to where you see Herrick Park now. It went much, much further back, and in fact, there was a wood two-car garage with a room above it. And my grandfather used to keep bees, and it
Okay.
always amazed me. He would go out to the beehive with nothing on. No protection. He'd go and take the honey from the bees, they would swarm all around, they would never sting him. And then they would just go back in the hive when he was finished. And I used to think, boy, that's so brave to be able to do that. And he did it
Well, it
all the
was kind
time.
of brave.
Yeah,
Maybe you just got used to it, I don't know.
that's true,
but-
that's true.
Yeah, those are great memories, that's really, and next to the hotel would have been Halsey's Garage on the other
Yes,
side.
absolutely, sure.
Which is where Stop and Shop is
Right,
now.
right.
That was Halsey's Garage where they sold, what kind of cars did they sell there?
I'm not sure, but I know there were car sales and all the repairs, and I don't know if, my parents used to tell me about all the limousine drivers, for the houses south of the highway. They would all gather there to converse and tell stories while their cars were being worked on by Halsey's Garage, so it was a gathering spot at the
Yeah.
time,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is your parents, you said.
Yes, that's my mother, they were high school sweethearts, basically. My mother graduates high school in 1944. My father would have graduated, but he enlisted in the Navy for World War II. He eventually gets his GED. But, she graduates in 1944, and she's a wonderful singer. She has an unbelievable voice. So she's on track to become a professional singer. And I have a whole portfolio this thick of all the interviews she went through and things like that. She eventually makes 2 records, and I have them somewhere. I just couldn't find them. I have volumes and volumes of picture portfolios and those sort of things. So she eventually makes 2 records, and she does a lot of singing for all the USO venues around the island.
And meet your father.
And she meets my father. Well, they met in high school. He comes home from the Navy. They're engaged, and they're married shortly after that. So they're engaged in, I think it was 1945. They marry shortly after that. And then I think, 1947, my brother is born, my older brother, Jimmy.
So that's the end of her career.
That's the end of her career. Although she does sing in the church choir for
I was gonna say
years
she
and years
sang,
and
I
years.
heard her sing solos at Most Holy Trinity
Yeah.
Church a number of times, so
Well, a funny story, when I first met my wife Maddie, we go to a midnight mass. And, of course, she's met my parents and everything, but she knows nothing about my mother's singing abilities. So we're in midnight mass, and this beautiful voice starts singing. And she turns around to look, and of course, it's my mother, and she's like, she gives me a nudge, you never told me she could sing like that.
And your
So,
mom was the Loris.
Loris,
She
yes.
was from the Loris
Yes.
family, and your dad is Lawler.
It's Lawler, right.
Now, how did his family come
Well,
to?
they came from Pennsylvania, so would be my great-grandfather was Thomas Lawler,
Mhm.
and he was a butcher. And he had a butcher shop down in the vicinity of where Joe Wren's used to be, and I forget what it's called now.
Skimhampton.
Yeah, Skimhampton.
Mhm.
Small little building, but it was a market, it was more than just a butcher shop. And I wanna say it was called the Sunrise Market or something along those lines. And so people would go there to get, it's kind of almost like a Red Horse Market now, but not as big, obviously. And his big thing was whatever piece of meat was on sale for that period, he would put it in the window and he'd have some kind of fancy design. He would carve something into it, like if it was a leg of lamb, he would carve roses in it or something like. So it was a big attraction that drew people in for, and so then he, with my great-grandmother, have 2 sons, Thomas and James, my father. Excuse me, I got that wrong. He has a son, Perry. And he goes to World War I, and he gets exposed to mustard gas.
Mhm.
So for a long time, I remember we couldn't find him. We didn't know where he was after the war, and so finally they find him in the Northport VA hospital. But by then it's too late. He's already passed away, and he's buried in Pine Lawn Cemetery. But he and my grandmother, Jessie Burnett, have 2 sons, obviously my father and his older brother, Tom. And they're 11 years apart. And you'll see another picture in there where my father is playing the drums.
Oh, there's
right
that.
there.
I have 2 pictures here. One is you as
With my
you
siblings.
and your siblings
Right,
together,
right.
and the other is your father playing the drums.
Right, so just to continue with my father, that you'll see THL on that drum set, that's his older brother's drum set, Tom. For he enlists in the army, and he's a lifer in the army, so he's off at wherever. And so my father picks up the drums, and very interestingly, he couldn't read a note of music, but he could listen to a song and he could play the drums to it, which was kind of fantastic. So he's playing there. One is Rickenback. I think it's Paul's father, actually. Used to be the mayor.
On the piano?
And the other person in there, I'm not familiar with, I don't know. But, so they used to play at local venues around town.
Sure.
But just so interesting, I just remember him listening to a song once.
So how come
and he
I've
could
never
play
heard
it.
you sing? You got
I didn't
music
get
all
any-
over the place.
I didn't get any of those talents.
Lots of music
My
in your
niece
family.
Rose has that talent.
Yeah.
No. Well, interesting story about music. I wanted to play the drums too. My older brother plays the drums, and Bo played the drums. So I wanted to play the drums in grade school. I went to Amagansett grade school because we grew up on Beach Road, which I can talk about when we see that picture. But anyway, just quickly, they had enough drummers. My brother was playing the drums at the time. We were only a year
They didn't
apart. So
want
they
any more
wanted me to play
drummers.
the trumpet. And I didn't like the trumpet, so I quit, and that was the end of my music
Oh,
career.
that's too bad.
Yeah,
You probably
so-
have music in your
Yeah,
soul.
I'm sure, somewhere.
Okay, so this is you and your 3 siblings. You had 3
Right,
siblings
right.
when you were kids, and that's you
So
here?
That's me with the 6 guns.
Okay.
That's a foretelling of the future, I guess, because I do become a cop in the future, so.
That's a great
yeah.
picture. I love
But
that
we grew up
picture.
on Beach Road, which was just quickly a fantastic place to grow up. It was a private road in Beach Hampton. There were only about 20 houses
Hmm.
on the street at the time. We all knew one another. And so you really couldn't get into any trouble because there were so many eyes watching you. And I spent most of my time growing up on the beach.
East
from
Hampton was
9
a
in the
great
morning
place
till
to
5.
grow
Oh,
up in
it
the
was
fifties. I
fantastic.
mean, what a great place to grow
was
up. I
absolutely
mean, we
fantastic,
all have
sure.
great memories of that.
Sure.
Okay, now here you are, all grown up.
Okay, so fast forward, that's when I was in the academy for Suffolk County Police. I started with East Hampton Town back in 1969. I went to college in Vermont with biology as my major. I was going to be a marine biologist. So 1969, I come home from college. I don't know what I'm going to do for the summer. I had several uncles that were on the local police force. So they said, why don't you become a special for the summertime? So I did, and I decided I liked it. I stayed, I took the Suffolk County Police exam. I went through the academy for outside agencies, and I was hired by East Hampton Town. I was fortunate that I did very well on the police exam, so only a few months after I was hired by the town, the county came to me and wanted to hire me. But I didn't want to leave the town in the lurch for summertime. So I turned them down and I decided I would go the next class, which wasn't until late fall the next year. So that's me going through the academy the second time,
Okay,
which didn't make a whole lot of sense, other than the fact that the county had procedures that the local towns and villages didn't
Yeah.
have. So really it was for that. But I spent a good deal of my time traveling around the country, unfortunately, going to police funerals. That was the year that a lot of anti-police organizations were killing police officers, and I spent a good deal of time
this would have been
representing the county. It was
early
72,
70s, yeah.
73. in there.
And you look very studious here.
Well, I was very fortunate to do pretty well in the academy and
You
graduate at the
must
top of the
have.
class. So
And then you spent your career
I
in Suffolk
spent
County.
34 years with Suffolk County Police and loved every minute of it.
Oh, good.
I absolutely loved every minute of it.
How did you manage to live in East Hampton and work in Suffolk County?
Well, I commuted. It was still a bad commute, but nothing like it is today.
No, I mean,
couldn't do it today. I couldn't do
today
it
it would be
today.
impossible.
I had thought about moving further up west, but then I meet my wife Maddie, and
Oh, and that's the next
that's this
picture?
one, yeah. So the good story about that is I was the eligible bachelor around town, I guess, because all my friends had already been married. And we used to play softball in the softball leagues. And every time we finished the game, we'd gather at Lions, which is now Chitta, but it used to be Lions. So I walk in after playing a softball game, all the friends are there, we're gonna have a beer or two, and my sister-in-law, Teresa, comes over to me and she says, gee, I'd really like you to meet somebody, would you go out with her if I introduce you? I said, T, I'm kinda tired of being fixed up, I really don't wanna do that anymore, but you see that girl at the end of the bar, I'd really love to meet her. So that was Maddie, and then Teresa said, that's who I
Oh,
want you
that's
to
the
meet.
one you wanted to,
Yeah.
perfect.
So I knew right away I was gonna marry her. She didn't
Yeah.
know that, but I had decided already I was gonna. So we met, and I had just started a 2-week vacation. So we saw each other for 2
Oh,
weeks.
nice.
And it was nice. We hit it
Oh,
off.
that's
and
great.
That was that.
Okay, so now you're living in East Hampton
Mm-hmm.
and you're married and you spent all this time in the police department and now
Right.
you're retired from the police department?
Retired in 2004. But in late 2003, the then Mayor Paul Rickenback comes to me and says, would you serve on the planning board? So I said yes, and I did. Eventually became chairman of the planning board. So I served on the planning board from 2003 till 2008, at which time, I think with your urging, actually, because you were on the board at that time, he asked me if I would join the village board. So I do in 2008.
And this is a picture of you with Paul Rickenback,
Right,
who
right.
was the longtime mayor.
Exactly.
The whole time we were serving, he
Mhm.
was the mayor,
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, that's a great picture of the
Yeah.
two of you.
Mhm.
So that's what you did in your retirement. You're
Yeah.
still serving the people of East
Exactly.
Hampton.
Well, he designates me as police commissioner because of my police experience. And so, yeah, so I really, until 2020.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's see what this picture, oh, this is the last picture I have now. This is your kids.
Oh, yeah. So that's Adam and Anna. That's when they were, 14 and 10. We
Uh-huh.
were in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore.
They definitely look like siblings.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They were great. And, Maddie and I are so proud of them because they're both successful in their
Yeah,
own
tell me
rights.
who they are now.
So Adam is in law enforcement, and we're very proud of him. He just got a very good promotion, and he also loves it. He's in federal law enforcement, and married a wonderful girl who we love, and she works as the assistant to a private school administrator. So she's very successful, and they have one daughter, our granddaughter, and we're so proud of her. She's just a joy to be around, and we can't wait to visit. And just she's just such a joy to be around and so funny. So we're very proud of all of them, and of course love all of them. And then Lisa uh, got her master's in teaching and stayed here, and she's a teacher now at the middle school, married a wonderful guy, so we're so happy about that. And we have a granddaughter. He had a daughter before he met Lisa, so we're very proud of her. She just graduated college.
Did
Our
you graduate
granddaughter,
already? Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
In 3 years, she graduated. So
Wow.
they're exactly 10 years apart. Our granddaughter Reagan and Olivia, who's so she was a major in the arts and that sort of thing. And
Uh-huh.
as a senior this past year, she wrote, produced everything, a 2-hour play, which was absolutely fantastic. So we went to see that this spring. She graduated. Now she's going to Hunter College to get a master's in education.
Great.
So we're very
So she'll
proud
be
of
an art teacher of some kind.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
She's also a good singer, because I know,
Oh,
I
yes,
remember
she
seeing
is.
her in high
Absolutely.
school, in different
She's got a
musical groups
wonderful
and,
voice, a
yeah.
wonderful voice, yeah.
So it just skipped over you.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you doing now? You're fully retired, but you must be keeping busy. Tell me what you're doing now.
Well, what happened is after I retired, I got my private investigator's license. I did some private investigating for a while, but it was mostly divorce work, and I really didn't, I liked criminal work, so I really didn't want to do that. And a friend of mine who wanted to get out of, I also had my security license, so I started doing a little bit of security, but a friend of mine who wanted to get out of some house watching that he had done said, would you please take over my houses? So I did it as a favor, and that kind of expanded into something a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be, because I just wanted something to occupy my time. And I'll never forget when I retired from the police department, I was so used to getting dozens of phone calls a day over something, even when I was on vacation. The day after I retired, no call.
Stopped.
nothing. So the biggest excitement of that day was a cup of coffee and reading the paper. What do I do after that? That's how I ended up getting my private eye license and doing that, and then got into house watching. And then that got bigger than I wanted to. So I'm finally winding that down now, and hope to be totally out of it by December. And then Maddie and I can finally travel and do more of what we want. She's originally from upstate, a little town called Hornell. So she, we have a house up there now that was her parents. So we travel back and forth up there quite a bit now, which is a great area. I don't know if you're familiar with it,
It's
upstate
the
a little
Finger
bit.
Lakes area,
Finger
right?
Lakes region, and they have very good friends, which they call family, that have a house right on the lake. So we usually go up there for about 1 or 2 weeks every summer, and it's just great. It's like it used to be around here 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Nobody locks their doors. It's a great little community.
Yeah, I have not spent time in the Finger Lakes area. My mother's family was from upstate, but they were from the Rochester Buffalo area,
Right.
which is a little more west.
Sure.
So I'm more familiar with that area, but I understand that the Finger Lakes are beautiful.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. And then Cuca Lake, which is the lake that their house is on, is supposedly the cleanest lake of the Finger Lakes. So it's really nice.
That must be
Really
nice,
beautiful.
yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So anything that you haven't accomplished yet that you still want to do?
Well, this is going to surprise you, but I've always wanted to operate heavy equipment.
Really?
Yeah, and I actually did it once. I'd like to do it again. Years ago, I had a great relationship with my father-in-law. And we happened to be talking one day, and I mentioned to him that I always wanted to operate heavy equipment. So later that day, he says, "Oh, come on, let's go for a ride." So he takes me for a ride, and we pull into this junkyard. And he knew the owner of the junkyard. And we pull up to this tremendous crane. I mean, you needed a stepladder to get on it had tracks on it, wasn't on tires. And just to get into the cab, you needed to use a stepladder to get into the cab. So we met the owner. He says, go ahead, get up in there. And he climbs up with me. He showed me the controls. And so for 2 hours, I spent crushing cars.
Oh, that's
It was
nice.
great, yeah.
That's fun.
So I could do that again.
You do that
But,
again.
yeah,
That's funny. I thought you were gonna say you were gonna join the choir at church.
no, that's
I
not
I
my
was still
thing.
holding out hope. that there
There's
was
no hope
something.
of that ever happening.
Oh, Rick, that was great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I have one question that I like to ask all my guests. I don't know if you ever watched the TV show Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton, he interviewed famous people,
Mhm.
and he had a series of questions at the end that he asked all of them. And my favorite one was, which I'm going to ask you, is if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get to the pearly gates?
Welcome. Of
Exactly
course,
what I want to hear
of
too.
course.
You'd be surprised what some people say, though.
Oh, is that right?
It's not always welcome. It's like, who are you? Who are you?
Well, I'm hoping I've lived my life to the extent that I
I
would be
think
welcome.
you've been a great member of the community for sure, as has obviously your family for many generations. So it was great talking to you about that. I just want to take a minute to thank my sponsor, Wayland Filer Attorneys and Emma Gansett, and thank the staff here at LTV for being so great to work with and for making community access television possible here in East Hampton. So thank you so much for tuning in, and please make sure you tune in and watch another episode of Let's Talk.